All right, welcome to this explainer. Today we are tackling a medical and developmental mystery that plays out in living rooms, public restrooms, and school cafeterias literally every single day. If you've ever watched a child become absolutely terrified of a sound that seems totally normal to you, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Today, we're going to dive right into the science of why this happens and, more importantly, what you can actually do about it.
It's an exhausting reality for so many caregivers. One second, everything is fine, and the next, your child is fleeing in sheer panic from a running vacuum cleaner, a hand dryer, or a sudden smoke alarm. It really feels like you're walking on eggshells, constantly bracing for the next auditory trigger. But here's the thing. These reactions aren't just misbehavior, and they definitely aren't random. There's a deeply rooted physiological reason behind this fear.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap to help manage this complex challenge. First, we'll look at the stuck volume knob. Second, the 3 costumes of intolerance. Third, strategies that actually help. And finally, the ear defender trap.
Starting off with Section 1, the stuck volume knob, looking at the underlying neurology of sound intolerance.
When your child reacts to the hand dryer, the vacuum, and the fire alarm, you aren't dealing with random separate fears. You're actually dealing with a single neurological condition manifesting in different ways, known as decreased sound tolerance. And to give you a sense of scale, 50 to 70% is the number to keep in mind. Now, I need to be super clear here. This high prevalence rate is not a general statistic for all kids. This figure specifically represents the estimated number of individuals on the autism spectrum who experience decreased sound tolerance at some point in their lives. The medical literature shows that atypical behavioral responses to environmental sounds are exceptionally common in autistic children, making it one of the most prevalent and functionally disabling sensory challenges they face.
Think of it like this, and this analogy really hits the nail on the head. Imagine the auditory system has a volume knob that's turned all the way up, and it's stuck. The biological mechanism at play here is called central gain, where the brain is improperly amplifying low-level sensory information. So the sound isn't just subjectively annoying. The neural activity in the central auditory structures is actually, paradoxically, increased. The signal is literally just too strong. And as the quote says, knowing that your internal volume knob is stuck is its own kind of dread for a child.
Moving on to Section 2, 3 costumes of intolerance. Let's break down the clinical branches.
So the crucial point is that decreased sound tolerance isn't just one singular experience. Clinically, it actually splits into 3 distinct types that require entirely different management strategies. The first costume is hyperacusis. For a child with hyperacusis, everyday, moderate sounds, like a dish clinking or a dog barking, land as excessively loud. Psychoacoustically, they have a steeper loudness growth in the brain. But it goes beyond just being loud. These sounds can be physically painful. It actually hurts their ears.
The second costume is phonophobia. Now, this isn't about in-the-moment pain. This is an intense anticipatory dread or a specific phobia of a sound. The distress, fear, and panic start before the noise even occurs. Because of this extreme anxiety, they'll actively avoid places where they think a loud noise might happen, like flat-out refusing to go into a public restroom because there might be a hand dryer.
And the third costume is misophonia. This involves an intense, highly inappropriate emotional reaction to very specific trigger sounds. We're usually talking about anger, disgust, or extreme irritation, and the triggers are often small, human-made noises like chewing, sniffling, or a family member breathing just a tiny bit too loudly. Current science suggests this happens because the brain's salience network inappropriately flags these specific triggers as major threats, creating this immediate, intense physical and emotional response.
Let's move on and see how this all builds, because these conditions often stack together. Most kids who hate loud noises don't just have one of these. Imagine a child has hyperacusis, that in-the-moment pain when they hear a loud noise. Because that sound literally hurt them, they develop phonophobia, the anticipatory dread and fear that the pain will happen again. The in-the-moment pain creates the fear, and the fear drives the child to avoid whole environments.
All right, Section 3, strategies that actually help. Let's get into an evidence-based action plan.
As a caregiver, you don't just have to sit by and watch your child suffer, and the solution is absolutely not telling them to just tough it out. Here's our proven 3-step roadmap focusing on counseling and controlled sound exposure. Step 1, name the reaction. Step 2, provide predictability and control. And Step 3, ladder back into avoided places. Let's look at exactly how to execute these.
Step 1, name it to frame it. You kind of have to play detective here. Which of the 3 costumes is your child wearing in that exact moment? If they're feeling pain right then and there, that points to hyperacusis. If they're panicking before anything even happens, you're looking at phonophobia. And if they're reacting with sheer anger to someone chewing, that's misophonia. Nailing this down is the absolutely crucial first step that frames and guides your entire management approach.
Step 2 is all about predictability and control. The auditory threat level drops dramatically when a kid actually knows a sound is coming. Give them a countdown warning before you run the blender or before walking past a hand dryer. Even better, hand over the on switch to the child. If they are the ones pressing the button to turn on the vacuum cleaner, their brain processes that sound entirely differently than if it suddenly attacks them from across the room. Control is incredibly powerful.
Step 3 is laddering back. This is basically the concept of graded exposure. If your child avoids a busy restaurant, you don't just force them into a packed diner on a chaotic Saturday morning. You start with a quiet cafe on a Tuesday afternoon. You visit an empty school gym before you ever ask them to sit through a roaring pep rally. And hey, wearing ear defenders on the way into these spaces is perfectly fine, as long as the ultimate goal is to gradually stop avoiding the places altogether.
Which brings us to Section 4, the ear defender trap, the counterintuitive pitfall of total silence.
When our kids are in distress, our natural instinct is to protect them. But when it comes to sound tolerance, our best intentions can accidentally make things much worse. There's a tool families use every single day, hoping it brings relief, but over time, it works against the brain's natural ability to adapt. The one thing that actually makes it worse is leaving ear defenders on all the time.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the biology behind the trap. Ear defenders are a real game changer when used right, but if they're worn everywhere all the time, they maintain the problem. If you plunge the ears into constant total silence, the brain compensates by turning that internal volume knob up even higher. Constant silence lowers the tolerance threshold further, so when the headphones finally come off, everyday sounds feel even louder and more painful than they did before. The secret is to use them for known loud events, like fireworks or a loud assembly, and not as a default setting for daily life.
Before we wrap up, we absolutely need to establish the safety net. While these management strategies are incredibly effective, persistent sound sensitivity always warrants a professional evaluation. You should seek a proper audiology assessment to rule out physical hearing issues. And if these sound tolerance issues are accompanied by other sensory differences, it's really wise to ask about a developmental assessment too. You should never try to diagnose the root cause entirely on your own.
So we've covered the neurology of the stuck volume knob, we've identified the 3 costumes of intolerance, and we mapped out a solid strategy of predictability and exposure. So what does this all mean for you? I want to leave you with this final empowering question. How can you start handing the on switch back to your child today? Whether it's a quick warning before the blender starts or letting them push the button on the vacuum, you now have the tools to help rebuild your child's sound tolerance one predictable step at a time. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.